Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Coming back with another video. This is just a quick discussion talking a little bit about, a lot of times people say, well, if you use proc sets, then, proc sets aren't that reliable, and then it causes other parts of your build to suffer. You're going to have, not really good damage or not really good sustain, etc. And so I wanted to put together basically my proc Pilar build, which is it's a set uh, for it's a build for Magplar. Jumping right in again because there proc sets can't crit, but proc sets are affected by spell pen. So a really good thing to utilize in terms of your Mundus is the Lover to give you the extra penetration that you can see right there. You can see the spell penetration on this build. This is no CP, as I predominantly play no CP. Is 7636 for a no CP build. All points in the Magica. In Cyrodiil. Dark Elf for the extra spell damage, right? Look at the stats on my build. You can see 23 4k HP with 31k max Magica, 15.5k into stamina. Here's the recoveries with a pot, rocking just under 4,000 spell damage on this build. 30% critical, and you can see the spell critical damage is 70% on this particular build. The effective spell power on this build is just shy of 9k, right? For people who are like, you're going with proc sets, they're uncertain and they affect your build in all sorts of ways, and I always call bullshit on it. And this is primarily why PvP is so dramatically affected by proc sets, is that you can utilize many different proc sets. This build in particular, I'm running 3 different proc sets, and you can see that it's not not really hindering my effective spell power at all. You can see my resistances right here. My spell resistance is 22k, physical resistance is 21. And in terms of looking at the sets, is shit like Grothdar, right? Grothdar basically has a 50% uptime for 2,000 damage, as well as giving you max Magica. This is all AoE damage, right? And you've got things that can reduce it, which is true, but there are other things you can utilize to kind of bypass that, right? Ember Shield, which gives you both damage as well as physical and spell resistance with 100% uptime, right? When you deal damage with a fully charged heavy attack, you have a 50% chance to increase your resistances by 3440, as well as dealing 1200 flame damage within 5 meters for 1 second for meters of you every 1 second for 6 seconds. So this has a 100% uptime. Grothdar 50% uptime. It's real easy to keep it up because it's when you deal damage. It has a 10%, and 10% is fairly high. Just think of things like Scoria. Just think of things like Bloodspawn. Very high uptime. Another one set that you can easily take advantage of for both sustained and damage is Overwhelming, right? It says when you deal damage, when you deal damage with the class ability, jabs, AoE damage, Solar Barrage, AoE damage, class ability. So in essence, Overwhelming also gives you huge amounts of the uptime. 8 meters. 8 meters is fucking huge. I think it's like the same as DK standard, right? And if you want to get an idea of how big the fucking ability is, of how big the procs of the range is, 8 meters, right? And it deals shock damage, right? So that gives you high uptime on concussion, which will give you an extra 8% damage. We're utilizing a lightning staff because lightning increases AoE damage, right? AoE. So all of that is affected, as well as utilizing things like Ellie Drain, again, because this is all magic damage. So more bypass plus light armor plus the Lover Mundus all increases the amount of damage that proc sets will deal. Of course, this is a no CP, and of course, things like Bloodthirsty, right? When people get low, Bloodthirsty will kick in for an additional 9% damage, which will increase all of your proc sets. Now, realistically speaking, I could drop 1 Arcane and go 1 more Bloodthirsty and get an additional 18% on all of my procs. When someone reaches 25%, because just on this particular build, not utilizing an execute, really don't think you would even need it, but it's entirely up to you. Just kind of showcasing how you can easily theory craft builds like this that deal ridiculous amounts of damage do not affect your sustain or your damage or your max stats in any way, shape, or form. You can see the tooltip on my Honor the Dead. You can see the tooltip on my toppling, the tooltip on my jabs. Again, this is a no CP build, utilizing our Solar Barrage, Race Against Time, LE Drain, and of course your Armor Buffs, your Cleanse, and of course you can see the tooltip on my Crescent. And when you think about, well, how much damage, over time does a build like this just in the procs deal? And of course, you can see it right there. So between all three procs, this is dealing 4450, and of course that would be cut in half in no CP Cyrodiil, and this is per second, right? So this is 2000 damage per second, which is literally almost on par with the Warden Ultimate, right? The Mag Warden's Ultimate usually will deal just around 2k per second, and of course you can get all that just basically for free, as it really doesn't require you. A Grothar just requires you to deal damage, which of course between jabs, Solar Barrage, and Crescent, you will be dealing a shit ton of AoE damage, and it will proc on cooldown, right, every 2 seconds. So it gives you roughly about the same as 1k per second, right? Because it's 2k per second over 5 seconds with a 10-second cooldown. The cooldown is of course counted at the very beginning and not at the end of the proc. So it in essence has a 5 seconds of uptime and then 5 seconds of downtime, and then it can be reprocced, with all the AoE damage that you're doing between like things like jabs, Solar Barrage, and of course Crescent, right? So you've got 3 different abilities that have the opportunity to deal damage. Of course, same thing with things like overwhelming Surge. It basically procs whenever, it's 33% chance whenever you use a class ability, and it has a 6 seconds uptime with a 6 second and then 6 second cooldown. So by the time it falls off, it also has the opportunity to be reprocced, and since it's a 33% chance whenever you do damage, you have quite a bit of opportunities for keeping this up literally almost 100% of the time. The great thing about this ability is about this set is it also gives you sustain, as 15% of the damage that you deal this way is restored to you as magic. So that's quite a bit of magic of return. So you have magic of return here, magic of return from a heavy attack, and of course magic of return from LE Drain, and of course magic of return from not restoring focus, excuse me, we use the other morph, channel focus, right? So it gives you, I mean, you could use either one. If you're not able to sustain your stamina and you're having no issues, you can use either morph. But let's just say we basically have 1, 2 heavy attacks, potions, and then of course the proc from overwhelming. And then of course in the back bar is an Infuse Ice Staff in case you wanted to preserve your stamina, since you have really easy ways of maintaining your max magicka between 1, 2, a potion, and overwhelming surge and heavy attacks. It makes it real easy for you to utilize a Ice Staff on the back bar so that you can preserve your stamina for blocking and situational dodge rolls, as well as for more importantly for being able to CC break. And so of course this is with Bewitched Sugar. You can run any kind of food, and of course this is with all spell damage. And of course, because we're dealing lots of AoE damage, it's really easy to take advantage of Camouflaged Hunter for the extra 8% from Minor Berserk. And of course you'll be dealing AoE damage here, you'll be dealing AoE damage with Puncturing Sweep. So it makes it really easy, especially when you're fighting multiple opponents, to be able to get behind them, deal critical damage. Templar, he has a pretty good amount of critical damage, especially in OCP, so 1 out of 3 of your abilities are going to crit. Crescent is really cheap. You're literally going to have this on maybe about 25-second cooldown, so you have a lot of AoE damage. You can gap close Crescent into make sure your Solar Barrage is up. Literally all of your procs will go off, because you'll be the idea is to kind of gap close into multiple people. You've got Honor the Dead, which is broken for broken OP heals. Overwhelming Surge will basically keep you kind of topped off in terms of your max magicka. If anything, you've got LE Drain. Make sure you toss LE Drain on everybody, and then just make sure you keep channeling focus up 100% of the time, and you'll have like this wave of magicka that will come in. You'll have all this AoE damage that will just proc for free, and of course, you've got jabs, and then of course Crescent Sweep. So it's like, this is one of the reasons why on the vast majority of the builds that I run, I stay away from proc sets because realistically speaking, it in no way, shape, or form impedes your ability to deal damage. If anything, it gives you this ridiculous amount of damage, and it's literally all for free. Not to mention, of course, with Ember Shield, it will give you, of course, more stamina. You get a free proc from Overwhelming, which gives you both damage and sustain, and more damage via the procking concussions. You're going to proc concussion with the lightning staff. You put a shock glyph on there, so you'll have high uptime on the extra 8% from what is it, minor vulnerability, right? Whenever we deal shock damage, it can proc concussion, and then of course concussion procs minor vulnerability. So you've got the lightning staff plus a shock glyph plus overwhelming. All of that can proc that status effect, so which of course increases the damage of your proc sets by an additional 8%. So this is just kind of just showcasing how it's very easy to make these really strong builds you can literally rely 100% on a proc build, and in no way, shape, or form impedes your ability to sustain and deal damage. It just doesn't happen. And this is primarily the problem when you understand how the game works, how you can easily take advantage of these things, and literally your death recap will be like Ember Shield, Grothar, Overwhelming Surge, and then jab damage, and it's just retarded that you can actually do this. But this is kind of the state of the game, and why I typically encourage people not to utilize proc sets, because they're such a crutch within the game. But like I say, to each his own. This is just kind of a little video kind of showcasing that really quick for people who are like, I get it all the time in chat that people are like, oh, things are they're not reliable, etc. It causes you to lose out on other areas of your build. So I just wanted to kind of showcase how that pretty much is not the case. I can do this with numerous builds on both stamina and magicka. It's actually very easy to do when you understand game design and you have just like literally the understanding of how the game works. You can CC break and heavy attack, maintain your resources. As you can see, in no way, shape, or form is this build impeded through the use of multiple proc sets. And you're really not going to get that much more damage utilizing other sets or more sustain out of certain builds. It's just really silly at this point, but hey, it is what it is. Hope you guys enjoy your weekend. Thanks for watching. Take care. God bless. Feel free to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll catch you next time.